Hello, Isabelle.
Hi, Jens.
Hi, it was a pleasure for me to meet you.
Well, thank you for coming to our first edition in Berlin.
We are all excited. All Berlin is quite struggling because it's a beautiful event until now, from my point of view. Yes, how do you see it? It's a success until now?
Yes, I mean, our aim was to get, at least 1,000 visitors. I think we're, well over 1,000 people now, mostly from the trade. So, we've got the whole team from Noma came, 20 people. We've got people flying from all over the world, which is really exciting.
Okay.
But even more importantly, we have actually a really good representation from the, the German wine industry here, which I think it means that, what we're doing is resonating with people. We had about 150 press. So I think there's a level of interest, which is exciting.
Yeah, I think so too. Actually, before we start, what is actually Vin Natural for you?
For me, when I use the word natural wine, and we're very careful when we talk about the fair here, it's an organic, biodynamic and natural wine fair. So the guys behind us, the Spanish, I would say a lot of them are natural wines, so they don't add anything, they don't remove anything, so it's just pure grape juice, fermented and bottled. For me, that is what a natural wine is. And then you have people on the fringe, of naturalness, where they add a little bit of sulfites at the bottling stage.
Yeah.
But as the more you do to the wine, the more you remove yourself from this idea of natural wine. And the vineyard has to be organic.
Okay.
This is
Really
like a big deal. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. It's quite crowded. And why do you think so many people are so interested in that topic?
Oh, that's a good question. Because I think people are realizing that the wine industry is a very diverse industry. And I think it's important. I think there are multiple reasons. I think, it's important to consider all the small fringe growers that are doing exciting stuff, trials, making very different styles of wines. I think the wine industry is changing. The way the food industry has changed. We're just a bit behind. We're seeing craft beer, sourdough breads. We want cheese made from raw milk. Okay. And wine is a bit the last sort of chain, link in the chain where we are kind of catching up and saying, hey, we do the same with wine.
Okay.
So I think people are getting more and more interested, more curious. I think people are realizing that actually there's a lot of stuff that goes into wine, and maybe they want to choose wine that has been made a lot more naturally and is free from pesticide residues and chemicals.
Okay. I mean, I think it's time as well, because it's for a lot of customers really confusing in a way of biodynamic, organic, natural wine, orange wine. Isn't it time to have a seal or a label to orientate the customers?
Yes, I mean, you're right. And I was recently reading yesterday a post about orange wine where people were saying a vin jaune is an orange wine. So I think there's a lot of confusion. And I think because, in a way, this may sound controversial, but the natural wine world, because it's so food orientated, has attracted a lot of people who are interested in wine and they want to work in the wine industry.
Yeah.
But maybe they don't really have the professional background or the knowledge.
Okay.
And I think sometimes it's important to also have some theory behind what you're doing. And I think it's time that people, before they write anything or before they talk about natural wine or anything else, it's time that they do a bit of research, talk to the producers and find out actually what they're doing, rather than rely on some ideas.
Okay.
If you start calling a vin jaune an orange wine, it's clear that you don't really know what you're talking about.
Okay.
And that is damaging for our industry.
Okay.
So I think it's time to also regroup and, show professionalism, like in any industry, because it's very easy to just become suddenly it's all crafty, so you can say anything. But I think it's important to sort of go back to actually what it is that we're talking about. So we need to make some work on that in that area.
So no seal, never ever.
Pardon?
No seal, Vin Natural, never ever.
No, it will. For
will.
sure, it will, because my point was that, I think because people are getting more and more confused, so we need to kind of bring it back to a more serious level.
Okay. What do you think Vin Natural which role it will play in Berlin and in Germany?
I think it's an enormous market, and the consciousness. Here we have essentially trade, so I'd say 80% is trade, but we have a few members of the public, mostly from Berlin. I think that the potential is tremendous, but I think Germany, from my understanding, needs to maybe start valuing the smaller batch production, the maybe wine which is Riesling, which is not made with blocked malolactic and sterile filtration and residual sugar and all of this, and maybe realize that, wine has many different forms and embrace all of these forms. But I think there is, look, the growers were all a bit, Germany, it's a very tough market, but they were very keen to come and they all came. And I think now they can see that, we are at the beginning of something exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, imagine Vin Naturel as an ambassador. Is there anything beyond Vin Naturel that Vin Naturel can last, or let's say take over in a meta level, let's say, or something like that? Not just being wine, meta level beyond just being wine?
I don't understand your question.
Again, no problem. Now Vin Naturel is Vin Naturel, let's say, but can it, or has it more, or this movement can have an impact outside just being wine?
Yeah, of course. This is
to something?
Community. Okay. When we decided to come here, all the importers, the restaurants, the bars were like, yes, we need you to come here. It would be great support for what we're doing, and everybody pulls forces. So this is not about, I think we're very lucky that we've built such a strong reputation, and the growers trust us and the trade trusts us. So actually we're in a very good position where we can create an event and we have an audience on both sides. But that's the community, and we've created a community where I think everybody feels that they are part of this community, so everybody's working really hard at making it happen. So of course, it's beyond wine. It's about managing to make a living by respecting nature. It's about helping people who are making 1,000 bottles of wines. Yeah, for sure. It's way beyond wine. Sure.
Okay, cool. Do you remember your first Vin Naturel moment still?
So yes, it was not so much of a Vin Naturel as in the wine was completely made, without any additive. In fact, I've got two moments. The first one really. So in fact, I've got two moments. The first one was really when I was in Hungary 8 years ago, and I tasted a bunch of wines, and one producer, it was blind, but one wine was really shouting at me, and I decided to go and explore that grower and realized that he was making really fantastic wines without a press, out of a hand-dug cellar in Eger in Hungary, and he's now a very good friend of mine called Imre Kallo. And it made me realize that you don't need all these multi-million-pound facilities and big stainless steel vats to make really great wines. Okay. And then I had this big moment where I was in the Roussillon, and I was with Alain and Ghislaine Castex from Caso de Mayol. And it was early on in my career in the natural wine world, and we had a picnic, and it was raining, and we all cuddled up in the back of their wagon, and we had the Canta Mañana, which is my favorite wine of all times. Okay. And for me, it was just like, bloody hell, this is the stuff that I just love drinking, and that was kind of like affirmative moments where I just, I never looked back. Okay,
cool. Will there be a Raw Berlin too?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
next year.
Good.
Yeah, I think it's very promising, and I think the growers are already asking us, are we going to do it again? Okay. Hopefully this venue will be really happy for us to come back, because it's a fantastic space. So yeah, I think definitely, for sure.
Okay, thank you very much.